Well, hello. I'm kind of emotional this evening, and I think a lot of people are. We lost Carrie Fisher, and it's not really sinking in. Not yet anyway. I wasn't a huge fan of her, but now everything that I did like about her is coming back. You know what I mean by that? It's like you know someone, but you don't know them well. And then they're gone, and you start to remember the times you did talk to them, or the things you did know about them as a person. And everybody's talking about Princess Leia, and that's great. She kicked ass. She was great, and she was ahead of her time, no doubt about it. She was striking. I remember seeing the first Star Wars and being impressed with her. My cat keeps pushing the door open. Anyway, that's fine. He's always welcome. He'll be coming across. Those brown eyes, I just thought she was great. And the hairdo, like the headphones. I didn't know much about her then at all. And I'm still catching up with, who she was. And I remember her as doing a whole lot of one-woman shows, which talked about basically how dysfunctional her life had been. And how making it into humor. And sometimes I had a problem with that. Sometimes you laugh to try to make the pain go away, and it doesn't work. The pain is still there. Others laugh, and maybe it's a bit of a panacea. There's a good word, a panacea. Or an anodyne. It's an anodyne. Excuse me, my throat's bad today. Anyway, it's an anodyne, and she used her life that way, and she wrote whole books about drug addiction and the things that she did in the 60s, 70s, probably 80s too. Sometime in the 90s, I think it was, she did a show, one of those shows like 60 Minutes, and talked about bipolar disorder. And yeah, very candidly, my jaw just about hit the floor. I didn't know what to think about it because she had a very, very huge episode. It sounded to me like a manic episode. Those things are usually followed by profound depression. In the show, I don't think she was really out of that manic episode. Her eyes were just, huge, and big gestures, and she was speaking quite flamboyantly. And I remember feeling kind of turned off by it. Like, come on, lady, if you're going to have a mental breakdown, go in the corner and have it, for God's sake, like you're supposed to. Don't do it in public. Don't talk about it, for Christ's sake. She was talking about it. She's talking about it in very plain spoken language. She said, look, folks, I'm mentally ill. I remember thinking, what? You can't say that. And that turned out to be the very thing I liked about her at the end. Was that candor, back when nobody was doing it. Nobody was doing it. People are still too careful, and they're just afraid of how they're going to be judged. And if you think our culture is okay with mental illness, just listen to what people say. If somebody does something kind of weird in public, he's just a whack job. He's a nut bar. Yeah, he's totally got a geranium in the cranium, or whatever. There's all these different expressions to describe someone with a mental illness. We no longer look at a gay person and say, oh, there goes a fucking pansy. We used to. He used to be quite okay. He's limp-wristed. Homosexuality, if I need remind you, first it was a crime, and thus Oscar Wilde, the poet, did hard time in Reading prison. Then it morphed into a mental illness, and for years, men and women known to be homosexual, what it was called then, were sometimes forcibly put into mental hospitals and medicated and given ECT. There may have been other factors going along with it, other forms of, actual illness rather than invented illness, because it's not an illness. Things are changing now, and you no longer look at a transgender person and go, But you look at someone with mental illness and there's still a lot of whack job, nut bar. Carrie Fisher got up there and said, hey, hi everybody, I'm a nut bar, and don't mess with me. I loved that. I came to love it. Retroactively, after I got over being kind of shocked that anybody would say a thing like that about a thing that's supposed to be kept hidden. You know, we're supposed to be ashamed of it. So I finally came around to thinking that was kind of cool. It must have been painful and difficult for her to do that. And probably some of her friends said, don't do it. You know, you can't really take it back. She said, I'm on 5 drugs and all this stuff. And there was something flamboyant about it. She said some stuff that, you know, really was kind of out there. She said, my friends and I are having a race to the end of my personality. She said it kind of in the present tense. And I now look at that and think, that kind of kicks ass too. I'd like to have a race to the end of my personality. I'd like to leave it behind. I'd like to get rid of my personality. Fuck it, I hate my personality. But Carrie Fisher, sorry about this, she was saying all these things way back when in the 90s that were really, you know, politically incorrect, I guess, if you want to call it that. She said at one point, and she said a lot of things about bipolar disorder, which was her, technically, the label that was being used. There should be a bipolar pride day. And I think when she said that, either the audience roared with laughter, or people just cringed, or they thought, oh. That's like saying you're proud of being a faggot. A faggot! A queer! It's like saying you're proud of being a homosexual. And you know what? Your life is pretty much over if you're a homosexual. What I'm saying is everything got turned on its ear, didn't it? With gay pride. You know what it is? I ate half a bag of barbecue chips in one bloody sitting. You talk about manic. Oh my God, they're really good, but you know, this is the week between Christmas and New Year's, sometimes called Crimbo. I'm in Crimbo limbo. And because I was in Crimbo limbo, I ate a whole bunch of crap after dinner. But not to stray too far from the topic. That which shocked me about Carrie Fisher way back then, I now think was kind of cool. And the Bipolar Pride Day, I don't know, people aren't cringing as much as they used to cringe. You know, they're starting to maybe warm up to the idea that it exists. And it's weird because these people, many of them have had depression. But they sort of pretend they haven't, or they act as if they haven't, or haven't known or loved anyone who has. And everybody, if you're part of the human race, this has touched your life. Either that or you're living in a goddamn cave somewhere. I don't know, it's weird. Sorry. Where's my water bottle? Okay, water break. Water spilled all down my front. Okay, the race to the end of my personality did not start until about 2005. It was probably maybe 10 years later or something like that. I had an experience. Now, it's not that I'd never had psychiatric trouble, if you want to call it that. I'd had it, and I'd been diagnosed this, and diagnosed that, and diagnosed this, and diagnosed that. And then suddenly treated like maybe I was normal after all. Normal? Not sure what that means. But they kept changing their minds about what was wrong with me. And then another doctor would say, Margaret, there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with you. Now go home. The implication being I was just a bit of a drama queen, you know, and I really wasn't in any pain. And come on. More than once I was told to go home and behave myself. And I was in the hospital sometimes. They don't put people in the hospital if all they need to do is go home and behave themselves. That was bad advice. You know, I've been watching a marathon of that show Botched I love it. It's about plastic surgery that's been just horribly, horribly botched. My psychiatric diagnosis and my mental health was botched. I didn't botch it by myself. I was in a system that botched my stability, my serenity, just about everything. I had a perfect storm of events in the mid-thousands that led to a full-blown, full-on manic episode, as they call it, attack. And it went on for months. I wasn't able to get much help. My doctor just kept saying, we just got to wait for it to slow down. I laugh now. She had me on, I think it was something called Imovane. It was a sleep medication. I wasn't sleeping worth a shit. I was getting 2 hours a night. So she doubled it. I was getting 2.5 hours. Then she tripled it. She had me on an insane dose of this stuff. And she kept upping my antidepressants and upping them, upping. Margaret, what's the matter with you? Why do you keep getting worse? Well, for God's sake, Margaret. I finally said, look, I think I need the hospital or I'm going to kill myself. And she said, no, sorry, the hospital's full up and you're not sick enough anyway. The doctor that I finally talked to said, in her words, you know bipolar. You know about, I don't think you bipolar. Now, I'm not trying to be racist, but those are the words I got. I don't think you bipolar. And she sent me home. I don't know how I didn't kill myself. I had a family, you know. I really had to keep going. It was only much later I discovered every single thing that doctor had done was wrong. Someone like me should never get massive doses of antidepressant or massive doses of an ineffectual sleeping aid. All it does is flip you the wrong way. And this doctor knew nothing about it. And I was later also to find out that most of the information a lot of doctors have, or that my doctors have, is out of date to the point where it's dangerous to apply any of those decisions now. So much more is known. If you had multiple sclerosis and were being treated the way MS was treated 25 or 30 years ago, you'd probably end up a lot sicker. You sure wouldn't be any better. So why was I being treated for bipolar disorder the way someone might be treated in the 1950s? It was crazy. Well, suffice it to say I did eventually, long story, I won't go into all of it, I got better, you know, but not because of the help. I'd been botched. I got better in spite of. And because I finally did find an ally, found somebody who did know what he was talking about and who did keep up on, goes to conferences and all the time is reading, because it changes. Not just the drugs. Drugs are they're an adjunct to care. The drugs are an aid and they're a help. But if you ever think they're all of treatment, the whole thing, I don't think so. No, some people are against them too. I'm neither for nor against. I just know that there are no miracle drugs. But I think a doctor has to know. Don't use something that worked in the 1950s, and don't tell someone to go home because they're not sick. You know, because they seem fine. You know. I had a friend around this time. Unfortunately, he's since died. He and I were really, really good friends for a few months, and then he was gone. He and I both had the same problem. We go see our doctors, and our doctors would think, oh, you seem fine. You know, you seem fine to me. We were both like crawling on our hands and knees, trying to hide it. We'd spent a whole lifetime trying to hide our pain, being told, you seem fine. So that was our catchphrase with each other. No, you seem fine to me. You know, and then we could laugh a little bit. I don't know how Carrie Fisher did it, and I think it was a bumpy road for her. She had a relapse in 2013, and it was much publicized. She had a few drinks, apparently, and having to be on medication, that's not a good situation. She kind of was matter-of-fact about it. You know, I don't think she went into hiding or anything. It's kind of like saying, well, that's what happens, you know. And that kicks ass too. That's pretty good. Bipolar Pride Day. Coming soon to a neighborhood near you.